You think you're in control. You think it's just sex, a quick release. This is a deep psychological and spiritual journey into the real causes behind compulsive sexual lust and addiction. Here, lust isn't a moral stain. It's a signal, a messenger pointing to unresolved pain, unmet childhood needs, and a life thinned of meaning. Have you ever looked beyond lust to see what it's really pointing to? Comment 1 if you've ever realized your urge was really about something deeper. Comment 2 if you're still trying to understand the source of your patterns. Jung gives us the key. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Compulsive sexual behavior is not indulgence. It's avoidance. Dopamine imitates progress. Anticipation masquerades as intimacy. As Jung warned, repression doesn't destroy the instinct. It distorts it. The goal isn't to kill desire. It's to integrate it, to bring shadow material into awareness, to reparent the unheld parts, and to refill the void with purpose, so sexual energy serves connection and creativity, not numbness. We begin now, not with blame, but with clarity. Ask, what is the urge protecting me from right now? What pain is it covering? This is your doorway. Layer 1. Lust is the shadow's disguise. When compulsive sexual urges surge, they're rarely authentic erotic desire. They're affect regulation. In Jung's terms, the shadow is speaking. Exiled shame, abandonment fear, muted anger, I am not enough, borrowing the intensity of libido to block direct contact with pain. Exile isn't deletion, it's storage. What's stored returns through the body, tight chest, buzzing skin, racing images, before words form, and the mind mislabels it as, I need sex, because sex is fast anesthesia. As Jung warned, repression doesn't destroy instinct. It distorts it. Usually, 30 seconds before the urge, a trigger appears. A slight, a failure cue, bedtime loneliness, post-achievement emptiness. The persona, I'm fine, in control, thins. The paired loop, micro-injury, sexual discharge, activates, breeding alexithymia. Emotions felt as urges. The task isn't moral purification, but differentiation. Restore mentalization. Locate the feeling in the body, name it, and say, this is abandonment, fear borrowing sexual energy. Naming ends possession. Libido decouples from defense and can be redirected to connection, creativity, or rest. This isn't suppression, it's integration. Layer 2. Dopamine is not true happiness. Compulsive sexual behavior runs on a chemistry loop that confuses anticipation with fulfillment. Dopamine spikes not when you are satisfied, but when your brain predicts a reward. The search, the scroll, the click, the almost. This is why just one more feels urgent, while the aftermath feels flat. It is not happiness. It is pursuit energy. In Jungian language, libido, the psychic life force, has been captured by an unconscious complex and routed into a narrow, repetitive track. The complex feeds on seeking, not being. So the system keeps you chasing stimulus while protecting you from contact with the original pain that set the loop in motion. Notice how the body accelerates during the ramp-up. Pupils sharpen, time compresses, options collapse to a tunnel. The fantasy promises regulation. The payoff delivers depletion. Pleasure here is mostly an idea rehearsed by the nervous system. Joy, by contrast, is parasympathetic. Warmth, relatedness, a felt sense of rightness. Joy widens the field. The dopamine loop narrows it. Without meaning, the psyche mistakes intensity for aliveness. Jung would say, the ego has identified with a part function. It treats pursuit as purpose, then wonders why satiation never lands. Precision helps. When the urge rises, ask, is this excitement about contact or about relief? Track the micro-interval after climax. If you drop into emptiness, you are riding dopamine, not meeting a need. Bringing this into awareness is already integration. The observing ego sees the complex at work. Then reroute the libido before the click. Slow the breath, lengthen the exhale, and name the target feeling. This is my nervous system seeking prediction, not joy. Turn toward a regulating action that actually satisfies. Eye contact with a friend, a walk that loosens the chest, creative work that absorbs you. The point isn't to demonize dopamine. It is to restore proportion so libido can serve a human aim. When anticipation stops masquerading as happiness, the compulsion loses its spell, and you regain the capacity to choose. Has dopamine ever tricked you into thinking you were feeling joy when it was really just a chase? Comment 1. If you've ever mistaken anticipation for fulfillment. Comment 2. If you've learned to notice the difference between the two. Layer 3. The inner child is still searching. Compulsive sexual desire often reenacts an old attachment wound. As children, we didn't crave sex. We craved attunement. Someone steady, present, delighted in us. When that was absent, the psyche improvised. Fantasy became a portable caregiver, predictable, available, never rejecting. In adulthood, the body remembers the workaround, not the wound. Porn or hookups then serve a relational need disguised as sex. Will someone see me, choose me, soothe me now? In Jungian terms, this is a complex, early unmet need constellated into an autonomous pattern. Libido narrows onto sexual ritual, not for bodies, but for conditional safety. Control feels safer than contact. Afterward, emptiness returns, reinforcing the child's belief. I'm still alone. Repair begins with reparenting in the moment of urge. Pause, place a hand where it hurts, and ask, what am I trying to simulate now? Often, stay with me. Tell me I'm enough. Naming the child precisely. A part of me is 5 and afraid. Lets the observing ego turn toward it instead of outsourcing care to a screen. Then, bring real attunement. Reach out to a safe friend. Wrap in a blanket, hum, rock, or speak to the child directly. I'm here. I won't punish you for needing. If tears come, the nervous system is completing what was once interrupted. Over time, soothing links to connection, not discharge. Reparenting is individuation at the attachment level. The self learns to hold the frightened child, freeing sexual energy for its true purposes: play, intimacy, creativity. Compulsion loosens not by harshness, but by kindness. The child no longer has to beg in disguise. Layer 4. Addiction thrives in the absence of meaning. When life lacks a felt why, the nervous system mistakes intensity for aliveness and chases the nearest spike. As Jung observed, modern suffering often stems from a loss of meaning. Without direction, libido stagnates and erupts as symptoms, porn, swiping, ritualized release. These are not about sex, but orientation. Without a North Star, the psyche generates flares to prove it still exists. Meaning is alignment, not ideology. When days revolve around avoidance, libido has nowhere to flow. It pools and ferments. Complexes hijack that energy, offering counterfeit aims, novelty, conquest, mood control. The peaks feel like momentum, but collapse into the same blank horizon, renewing the loop. Jung's view reframes addiction as blocked teleology. The psyche is not only shaped by wounds, but pulled by future possibility. Addiction colonizes imagination, narrowing time to escape rather than build. Restoring meaning widens time again. Small purposes, a task, service, or connection, anchor libido in constructive channels. The self grows through daily fidelity, not fireworks. Create vectors, not vows. Vectors are repeated acts pointing energy toward value. Practice before screens, presence for another, building stamina in meaningful work. They convert libido into momentum, replacing sedation with contribution. Expect resistance. Complexes dismiss meaning as pretentious or too late, but that's defense. Begin with the near and human. Finish work, repair a rupture, Help one person. Each act becomes a micro-ritual of belonging, antidoting compulsion. This is not moral reform, but architecture. Anchored days still have urges, but urges become weather, not climate. As ego orbits the self, libido resumes its rightful place, as eros binding you to life, rather than a circuit breaker for pain. Layer 5. The ego doesn't want healing. It wants familiarity. Relapse often happens not at your weakest, but right after progress. Why? The ego equates familiar with safe. Healing threatens identity. If you're no longer the one who copes with porn or hookups, who are you? So the ego deploys old drivers, shame, doubt, nostalgia, fantasy, to pull you back into the known discomfort. In Jungian terms, an ego complex defends its territory. It is not interested in truth, only survival. Right before a breakthrough, expect friction, intrusive memories, just this once, a sudden urge to numb. Name it precisely. This is my ego seeking familiarity. Then pivot from willpower to witnessing. Anchor in the self, the deeper center, by slowing breath, widening attention, sound, weight, temperature, and asking, what new value am I protecting right now? Replace binary battles, give in versus resist, with orientation. Return to what matters. Create a micro-bridge. One text for connection. 1 page of journaling. 1 minute of cold water. 10 slow squats. Anything that converts arousal into grounded sensation. The message to the psyche is clear. Stability comes from presence, not compulsion. Over time, the ego learns a new familiarity, regulated states, meaningful work, honest intimacy, and no longer needs to drag you back to the past to feel like you. Layer 6. Numbness is a warning, not a solution. When sex becomes mechanical, scroll, surge, release, the goal is no longer pleasure, but absence. That blankness feels safe because it erases anxiety, shame, and loneliness for a few minutes. In Jungian terms, this is the psyche using libido as anesthetic. The complex seeks non-feeling to avoid contact with what it fears. But numbness spreads. Work dulls, friendships flatten, imagination dries up. Jung cautioned that what we refuse to feel returns as fate. The price of anesthesia is a shrinking life. Treat numbness as an alarm, not a refuge. In the moment, reintroduce sensation with meaning. Cold water on the wrists, feet on the floor, 3 slow exhales. Name 5 sounds, then name the emotion the ritual was hiding. Replace repression with containment. I can feel this and remain intact. Resume a symbolic act that reconnects you to life. A brief prayer, a drawing, a message of truth to someone you trust. The aim isn't to chase intensity, but to restore aliveness, feeling, relating, choosing, so libido can return to connection instead of erasure. When was the last time you felt fully alive, rather than just numbly going through the motions? Comment 1 if you've experienced that shift from numbness to aliveness. Comment 2 if you're still searching for that reconnection. Layer 7. Transcendence and the true self. When the craving quiets, you may feel empty rather than triumphant. That's not depression. It's recalibration, the ego losing an old identity, the one who copes with sex, and space opening for the self in Jung's sense, the deeper organizing center that seeks wholeness. Sit in the stillness long enough, and real desires surface. Not escape, but connection, creativity, and meaning. Here, libido is no longer hijacked by a complex. It is sublimated, channeled into making, loving, serving. Expect disorientation. The nervous system misses the familiar spike. Name it. This is withdrawal from false aliveness. Then practice gentle orientation. Breath low and slow. Feel your weight. Look at a real face. Touch a real task. Individuation means letting sexual energy return to its rightful role as eros that binds you to life, not anesthesia that erases you. The measure of progress isn't spotless behavior. It's the growing capacity to remain present without needing a hit to feel real. Layer 8. Real power is choosing not to use it. Freedom isn't immunity from temptation. It's the capacity to remain related to it without obeying. Jung would call this strengthening the ego-self axis. The observing ego stays in dialogue with the deeper center, the self, instead of collapsing into a complex. When the sexual urge swells, don't prove strength by white-knuckling. Prove sovereignty by choosing. Name the option honestly. I could. Then add the second line. And I won't, because I'm protecting what I value. Hold the wave for 90 seconds while you breathe low and slow. Most urges crest and fall if you don't feed them images. Redirect libido into a concrete valued act. Message someone with truth. Step into focused work for 10 minutes. Move your body until heat disperses. This is not repression. It's integration with agency. Power here is quiet. You keep dignity, energy, and direction, and desire learns its rightful place. Servant, not sovereign. Layer 9. The shadow never dies, but you don't have to obey it. The shadow, your exiled shame, hunger to be chosen, fear of abandonment, doesn't vanish with progress. It integrates. Jung's point: the goal isn't perfection, but wholeness. You stop being possessed by unconscious contents because you can now relate to them. When an urge arises, you recognize the speaker. This is my lonely part, borrowing sexual energy. Recognition creates space. Space allows response instead of reaction. Keep 3 moves. Name, who's speaking. Normalize, of course you want relief. This is old. Navigate, choose a valued act. Treat flare-ups as weather, not identity. Return the libido to channels that serve life. Truth-telling, craft, friendship, prayer, rest. If you slip, skip the theater of shame. Repair quickly. Shame reconstitutes the complex. Accountability dissolves it. Maturity is the ego in ongoing dialogue with the self. You can feel desire without dramatizing it, set boundaries without self-hatred, and let sexuality become eros, energy that binds you to people and purpose. Liberation isn't force. It's awareness with consistency. You are no longer reacting. You are responding. You thought the battle was with sex. It never was. It was with disconnection, from feeling, from meaning, from the forgotten child, from the self that quietly wants your life. Jung's lens makes the pattern visible. Persona cracks, shadow surges, dopamine impersonates joy. The child begs for attunement. The ego clings to the familiar. Numbness spreads, and libido is captured by a complex that promises relief instead of relationship. Seeing this is not theory. It is emancipation. What once possessed you is now named, and what is named can be related to. Individuation is the turning point. Sexual energy stops serving anesthesia and begins serving eros, the binding force that connects you to people, craft, and purpose. You learn to stay present through the 90-second wave, to speak to the 5-year-old who trembles inside your ribcage, to choose because you value something more than relief. You discover that stillness isn't emptiness. It's signal clarity. Under the noise, your psyche wanted contact, creation, and truth. The goal of life is not perfection, but wholeness. Lust doesn't disappear. It re-enters the choir. It sings when appropriate and falls silent when not. Your authority is not the absence of desire. It's the presence of awareness that holds desire without being held by it. This is the crossing, from compulsion to communion, from avoidance to participation in your own life. Compulsive sexual lust is not a moral indictment. It's a message. The message says, feel me, feed me meaning, find me in the places you left me. If you answer, the loop loosens. Your work is not to become a granite statue. Your work is to become a living human whose libido is integrated, capable of desire, capable of saying no, capable of pouring energy into love, making, service, and rest. Carry these anchors. Name the speaker. This is abandonment fear, borrowing sexual energy. Naming restores choice. Reparent in real time, hand to chest. I'm here. I won't leave you for a screen. Invite a trusted other when possible. Differentiate dopamine from joy. If emptiness follows the peak, you were chasing prediction, not fulfillment. Protect meaning daily. One small vector, craft, contribution, honest repair, gives libido a channel. Expect ego backlash. Familiarity will seduce you. Call it by name, then pivot to witnessing. Treat numbness as an alarm. Re-enter the body with gentle sensation. Then name the avoided feeling. Choose openly. I could, and I won't, because I'm guarding what matters. Repeat until it becomes your new familiarity. Integrate, don't idealize. The shadow remains. You relate to it without obeying. Ask yourself tonight, what part of me still craves illusion? What am I running from? Who could I become if I stopped? Sit for 5 quiet minutes and let an honest answer appear. Then, take one action that serves a value. Send the hard message. Do 10 minutes of real work. Step outside and breathe until your chest softens. Small acts, repeated, are how the self gathers you. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You made a different move. You faced yourself. Walk forward aware. Let Eros bind you to life, rather than break you away from it. The shadow will speak. You will answer, with presence. And that changes everything. Do you believe your story can change through awareness and choice? Comment 1 if you've already begun this transformation. Comment 2 if you're just starting to wonder if it's possible.